Good morning. I Peter asked me on Thursday if I could give the talk, and I said okay, which is just as well because I have a tendency to write the talk in a flurry a couple hours before. I say I have a tendency. This is like my third talk, so but this is true for most assignments I get. Not that this is an assignment, anyways. So, but I've been thinking about a lot of this stuff for a while. Let me get up my notes real quick. Um, but before I get too much into it, and I need to do this real quick. Sorry. Thanks for bearing with me. Okay. Before I get fully into it, I want to start by acknowledging and thanking Peter and Jane Schneider, my teachers. And just to say that this practice, correction, this talk is just to encourage you in your practice. And a further tip of the hat to Greg Fain. He's been a teacher and mentor to me a lot over the years. And this is how he starts his talks. And he said it would be okay if I did that too. So, yeah, a lot of the thoughts that went into today's talk had been sort of buzzing around my head for a while. But what really kind of, you know, made me, gave me the oomph to make this the topic of today's talk was on Thursday night, the discussion, during the discussion, we brought up, we were talking about the general concept of serving others. And it reminded me of when I did fall practice period in 2018 at Green Gulch. For the sesshin, I was on the serving crew for tea. And the head of the tea serving crew was Sonia Gardenschwartz. And after doing the tea service in the afternoon, we all, after we cleaned everything and put it away, we would be there's like a side room to the dining room, and we kind of had a little discussion as a crew. And during one of the day's discussions, I'll just back up a little bit and say towards the beginning of the of the uh, of the practice period, I had Dokusan with Reb, and if you one of the things he said to me was that I need to figure out what's the most important thing to me about life, something like that. Can't remember exactly the wording, but it was like that. And I was just sort of sitting with that during the practice period. So, anyways, Sonia says like, "Does anyone have any questions?" And I go, "What's the most important thing in life?" And without any kind of gap in time in the least, just immediately she goes, "Serving other people." And I was just really blown away by that. I thought it was just really, really cool. She didn't even have to think about it. Now I think she's a student of Reb, so she'd probably like it'd come up before, and she'd probably already had this answer, but doesn't matter. Sonia is also the one who told me that one of the qualities of a priest is to be unflappable. That's where I first heard that word in association with priestness. So I've been kind of trying to internalize that and chew on it, and yeah, that is a quality that I want to emulate, that I hope to emulate. And also serving others. So the topic is basically serving others. And then, as if I needed any more motivation, the next morning, Friday, when I was looking at my Facebook memories, I saw a meme that I shared 1 or 2 years ago. It was just like it was just words, but it was a picture form. So, and it's in Spanish, so I'm going to read the Spanish and then I'll do my best to translate. So here goes. And if anyone speaks better Spanish than me and can help me translate it better, hit me up after. Anyways, hold on. Getting dry throat. Okay. So, in Spanish it goes, Me encantó esta frase. Los ríos no beben su propia agua. Los árboles no comen sus propios frutos. El sol no brilla para sí mismo. Y las flores no esparcen su fragancia para sí mismas. Vivir para los otros es una regla de la naturaleza. La vida es buena cuando tú estás feliz, pero la vida es mucho mejor cuando los otros son felices para causa tuya. Nuestra naturaleza es el servicio. Quien no vive para servir, no sirve para vivir. So, most of that's pretty straightforward. I fell in love with this phrase, or with this feeling. Rivers don't drink their own water. Trees don't eat their own fruit. The sun does not shine for itself, and flowers don't spread their fragrance for themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature, maybe even a law of nature. Life is good when you are happy, but it's much better when others are happy because of you. Our natural state is service to others. And then the last phrase is there's a little idiosyncratic like wordplay. So I did my best to translate it. So for someone who doesn't live to serve, it's not worth living. So vive para servir, no sirve para vivir. I tried it a little bit looser with the wording, but to try and get like the wordplay and preserve the meaning. And what I came up with was, if you are not living to do good for others, then life is no good for you. So it's very nice. I like that a lot. So enough of the intro. A few years ago, I was having dinner with my parents, and during our conversation, I told them something that has been coming to mind a lot recently in the lead up to and the time since my ordination. I checked with them and they said they're okay with me sharing this. What I said was something to the effect of, Mom and Dad, I love you very much. I want to be perfectly clear about this point. I am not looking forward to you two being dead. I'm not. I hope you're alive for a long time. I love you. However, I feel like when you are dead, that at that point, my life will be fully my own. While you're alive, I feel like I owe the living of my life to some extent to you. And so when you're not around anymore, I will not be obliged to share my life with anyone anymore. And that's what I'm looking forward to. So they were sort of understanding of that. And it might not sound so nice, and I don't know what possessed me to tell them that at the time, but whatever. Um, Again, to be perfectly clear, I'm not looking forward to my parents dying. So don't worry. I'm not a horrible person, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, so the reason that this was coming up in relation to ordination was that I saw a profound irony in feeling this desire to be free of owing some portion of my life to my parents, and then deciding to ordain as a priest, which I think means I'm obliging my life even more to our Sangha and all beings. And again, there's like a few years gap between the conversation with my parents and my request to ordain. Regardless, really, I think it's fair to say that my life couldn't ever be fully my own, whether or not my parents are alive, whether or not I am a priest, whether or not I am single or in a committed relationship, whether I have children of my own or remain childless. And not just because the sense I have of my small self is an illusion, and thus any sense of ownership I might have over my life is likewise an illusion. As a bodhisattva in training, which I have been told I am, and I have said I am, as a bodhisattva in training, I take the vow to live and be lived for the benefit of all beings already, whether or not, again, as a priest or not. So, what I'm describing is what I realized I'm describing, what I'm talking about, I realized it's different than an obligation, really. It's more like a pledge. Um, so there's the wisdom and the compassion teachings. We might say the ultimate truth and the subjective or conventional truth, maybe. Harmony of difference and equality. It's kind of getting to that same, balance of. Anyways, so there's the wisdom and compassion teaching. So the wisdom teaching would be that our individual self is an illusion, and any sense of ownership I might have over my life is an illusion because it is derived from that. If everything is empty and nothing has an abiding self, then there is no life to own and there is no owner. The compassion teachings, I think, integrate the conclusions drawn from the teaching of no self with the conventional reality that we live in, that these individual consciousnesses, our individual consciousnesses, do exist, that we have small selves, and that we can live our lives however we choose. And so whether we live to serve others is a choice we are free to make or not make. We are totally free to believe our lives are fully our own, to claim ownership of our lives. And we are free to believe we owe our lives in a big way to every other being. This is a great koan to approach with the try it on aspect of Zen practice. What does it feel like to live as though I can never own my life? Not in a way where I would let myself be taken advantage of, just in the way that my responsibility to others means I must be willing to put others' needs ahead of my preferences or desires as much as I can. And Jane said basically that during ordination ceremony. And I have a feeling in my gut that a life lived in this way is actually much more fulfilling. And not because Jane has also said basically that on multiple occasions. For a while, I've maintained a basic stance that I don't owe the universe anything, and the universe doesn't owe me anything. It brings me some peace of mind. It helps me break down my impulses to feel indignant or shortchanged, wronged, many ways which inflate the ego and my attachment to my small self, which results in suffering. And it helps ease some anxieties I get from prioritizing my desires and needs over those of others, which happens. But I think it would be better to ditch the dichotomy I take for granted of me and others and just look at myself and others with the same regard and do my best to navigate this sea of choices by just evaluating what I can do to take care of people, including myself. So when it occurs to me that is being that is what being a bodhisattva means, living my life for others, to live and be lived for the benefit of others, as it says in our bodhisattva vows, I sometimes feel like it might not be possible to be in a continual state of recognition of this. Rather, just like staying in the present moment during zazen, I can just pay attention and try coming back to that. So when I'm sitting, I'll try and stay present and stay focused on my breath, and I'll find myself drifting off into thought. So just like that in the outside world, if I find myself living self-centeredly, if I notice that, maybe I can come back to the vow of not prioritizing myself, not prioritizing others per se either, but just coming back to that vow of like, what does it mean to live as if I don't own my life? Well, anywho. So yeah, I can just pay attention and come back to that. I can notice if there's some space for me to try that on again. I can remember the emptiness of self if needed, and I can come back to serving others. Really, this just means to continue to practice with the precepts. It doesn't have to look like the proverbial sacrificial lamb. It shouldn't look like that, I feel. That would be the small compassion Reb Anderson talks about. The big compassion is realized in integrating the seemingly esoteric notions of no self with the conventional appearances I mentioned earlier. This is the practice I have undertaken, and I will be working on it my whole life. As I said earlier, I'm pretty sure this is going to make for a very fulfilling life. Again, that's something Peter and Jane told me. And I think it's true. And I think ordaining as a priest is a way to deepen this practice. So, I am very grateful to Jane and Peter for allowing me to ordain with them, and with you, and with all beings. Thank you very much. If someone has a comment or question, we've got some time. Boom, Sandy. Yes.
You hear me?
Yep.
No?
Hey, can you hear me?
No volume? You can hear me?
Yes.
I hear you. Okay. I just wanted to say I really enjoyed your talk. It was very much you. And when you mentioned, compassion and we're living for others, uh, I think it's something also, like learning to tie your shoes. You have to do it so many times till it becomes automatic. I think that with the intention to help others as a way of life, that if you keep the intention within you, in your heart, uh, it will become second nature. That will just develop in your life. And I think as you find um, what you find from doing that will only open you more to wanting to do for others. So
Mm,
you're definitely on the right track to being a priest. And
thank
thank
you.
you.
Sensei. Oh, your microphone is muted right now.
Do this.
Oh, okay. You mentioned the saying to live and be lived. I think the second part of that is something to really meditate on. To live and be lived for the benefit of all beings. You might meditate on the second part a lot more. But I think it's right not to put yourself to the front of things, but at the same time, you should prioritize enough as a form of gratitude to take care of your body and your mind. And so it's really important while you're living and being lived for the benefit of others that you also feel the great gratitude of the experience of the world, the experience of being yourself for the time that you have it, and the experience of being lived by others for the benefit of all beings, the experience of what the world means to you, to have a roof over your head, to be able to help all beings and things like that. That's all I wanted to say. But it's a nice talk, Chris.
Thank you. Yes, Michael.
Very good talk. I really enjoyed it. It reminded me of the time when I was taking care of my parents and the time I took care of my wife and my brother and stuff. And I found that it actually improved my practice, even though at the time I wasn't in a practice, because when you care for somebody, you it actually you're caring for yourself at the same time, because I do honestly believe, and I've pounded this a million times, that our intrinsic nature is compassion. We really do care about our fellow man, our families, the animals, trees, rocks, dirt, whatever. And that when I took care of my parents, it was like it was a duty, but not a negative thing, like, oh God, I gotta go do this. I wanted to do it. It was a natural response to want to help them and to take care of my wife and stuff. And I think compassion is a very natural, it is what we are. It's just that we've been clouded over by life to not recognize that. And your practice, being ordained, and you and I have had some talks about that by ourselves, that is demonstrating your compassion to the world, but also to yourself, because they end up being the same thing. That you really, that is what we are. And if you think about it, then you're not in the moment. When you do it, you're in the moment. When you're in the moment, that's all we have is us. And we are a part of us, and us is a part of we. So thank you very much for your talk. It was very, very well done.
Thank you, Mike. Spencer?
Yeah, thanks for your talk. Yeah, when we took those vows to live and be lived for the benefit of all beings, I mean, they're heady words, you know. I've been sitting with, these thoughts, you know, but, when I think about it, these are just rationalizations, right? I didn't know who I was before I was born. I don't know who I'll be after I died. But during this life, when I think about to live and be lived, I mostly, outside of family, lived and be lived 99% of the time for the benefit of myself. So there's this dichotomy and incredible disparity in application of time that I try and reconcile, with the vow, right? So, that, I don't know, that's sort of where I've been with a similar query.
Well, I'm happy to keep working through that with you, and individually, separately, and together.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Hey, Mark.
Muy bueno. Yeah.
Gracias.
Yes. I guess the question is like, do we really exist without other people? I think in Western philosophy, and actually in society, we're kind of naturally are headed that way, where we're all separate little beings. The way we think, we're all separated little cells living in our little, perhaps selves, and just relating with the closest of the people around us. But when we just, we base it on, I think, therefore I am, I think we've sealed ourselves off, and I believe we lose. Our identity, or actually the framework, our habits, everything becomes meaningless in a way, but not in the enlightened way. It leads to a lot of self-doubt and a lot of living in shadows. But I mean, I'm not speaking for the hermits, among us who can live in the caves for years and years and still find that. But I think in our lives, in our Sangha, it's like without others, we really truly don't have a shared reality. And that's reality, how much of a construct it is. It's essential for humans to thrive. So you actually are doing yourself a big favor by helping, serving, being there for others. It's kind of selfish. But it's funny how that paradox works out. So I appreciate what
Yeah,
you
for
had to
sure.
say on this. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. John. Oh, you got rid of the beard.
Yeah, got the beard gone. Trying to stay young. Beating the clock, as it were. I just wanted to say thank you. And your talk reminded me of Peter's, I don't know where this metaphor or little story originates from that Peter's told before, but I've told it to my children and others, and I just find it so understanding. And there maybe are some people on the call who haven't heard it before, but it's the metaphor of heaven and hell are the exact same place in this metaphor. It's a huge room with a table that's just full of food, and everybody is so hungry. And the only way you can eat is you have these 3-foot chopsticks, which are like, I don't know if they're attached to you or your Edward scissors hands or whatever, your Edward chopstick hands. But with those 3-foot chopsticks, you're completely unable to take from any of this bounty to be able to feed yourself. And yet you can feed those across from you or near you. You can feed others. And so those in hell are those who are continually trying to feed themselves with the 3-foot chopsticks. And those in heaven are those who have figured out that you just need to feed those around. So thank you, Chris.
Thank
Did I
you.
say it right, Peter? Is that the right story? Did I leave any out? You're on mute, Peter. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I muted you when that thing
Yes,
fell.
yes, Chris. I mean, that's right. Chris muted me before. Yeah, I talked about that last week. In fact, I used that. I talked about before when I used it again in my talk. Chris, you did a very good job today. That was sounded like a Dharma talk today. So congratulations on that. Yeah, yeah.